Welcome to the third part of my Pokémon Diamond Solo Run Race series. In the first two parts, I raced the starter Pokémon of the Sinnoh region through the campaign of Pokémon Diamond, in their base forms, Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup, and then in their middle forms, Grottle, Monferno, and Prinplup. So it's only natural to conclude the trilogy and see how they compare in their third and final forms, Torterra, Infernape, and Empoleon. By this stage, not only have they far higher base stats, but they have completely different move pools, and all three of them have acquired a secondary type. Meaning for each of the racers, a lot of battles are going to go very different when compared to their previous forms, both for better and for worse. The rules are the same as always, and should be on the screen right now. Comment down below who you think is going to win, and without any further ado, let's get into the race. It might be surprising to hear that it's actually Torterra that starts off the race rocketing ahead of the other two. However, it becomes a lot less surprising when you look at Torterra's moveset. For some reason, it learns Wood Hammer, one of the most powerful Grass-type moves in the game, at level 1. It's probably not going to be a very good long-term tool for Torterra, since it causes recoil damage, but at least for now, it allows her to one-shot the entire early game, when at this point it takes Infernape and Empoleon at least 2 or 3 hits to defeat anything. Empoleon ends up being left in the dust by the other two pretty early on, when the rival's Turtwig decides to stall him for about 20 turns. I'm not even exaggerating. That's just how this battle goes when a grass type has growled you 6 times, and your only attacking moves are Pound and Bubble. Infernape reaches the site of the first gym battle not too far behind Torterra, but winds up having to spend a good bit of time grinding experience so we can level up enough to learn a fighting type move. Without one, the first gym is borderline unbeatable for him. By the time she's earned her first badge and defeated the first villainous boss of the game, Galactic Commander Mars at Valley Windworks, Torterra is more than 10 minutes ahead of Infernape and nearly 20 minutes ahead of Empoleon, which is a pretty substantial lead for this early in the race. However, if you saw the last two races, or if you're at all familiar with this game, you can probably guess what happens next. The next portion of the game takes the competitors through Eterna Forest, populated mostly by bug types, and the second type gym, populated entirely by grass types. Fire types like Infernape can absolutely breeze through this part of the game, so it doesn't take him too long to catch up. Torterra still manages to make decent time, especially after learning a setup move in Curse, and gaining some coverage with Bite, but it simply isn't enough to hold on to first place. The pair of them head down to Hearthome City, with Infernape a little under 10 minutes in the lead. Empoleon, well, both of its pre-evolve forms massively struggled around this portion of the game, and even after gaining the Steel type, removing its weakness to Grass, and after learning Sword Stance, one of the best setup moves in the game, Empoleon proves to be no exception. It doesn't take him nearly as long to pull through as Piplup or Prinplup, but he still has a couple of pretty lengthy losses against Gardenia. And I'm afraid his struggles don't end there. While Torterra hasn't been able to regain the lead, she's surprisingly managing to keep it somewhat close against Infernape. She's begun to learn really powerful moves like Earthquake, and that, combined with her additional ground type, allows her to breeze through the third gym, far faster than Turtwig or Grottle could. Empoleon, on the other hand, is actually hurt by his secondary type around this portion of the game. He's gained a new weakness against fighting types that he didn't have before he evolved, so Maylene proves to be another massive struggle for him. By the time he finally pulls through, he's well over an hour behind the other two, and they don't show any signs of slowing down. Even if everything goes perfectly for Empoleon from here on out, he's probably gonna have to rely on something really stumping his rivals if he doesn't want to finish last. This is how things stand for a really long time, with Infernape in the lead, with Torterra consistently a few minutes behind him, and with Empoleon over an hour behind both of them. None of them breeze through any portion especially fast compared to the others, none of them hit any major roadblocks, it's all smooth sailing for the next few hours. Nothing of note happens until around Kenelev City, site of the 6th gym, where we have our first change in ranking since the 2nd gym. Infernape has to go on a detour to pick up the Flamethrower TM at Fuego Ironworks, and as a result, Torterra briefly manages to retake the lead, being the first to earn her 6th badge against Gym Leader Byron, and the first to begin the mid-game Villain Gauntlet. However, this next portion of the game is where Infernape really bares its teeth. The Ice types that populate the path to the 7th gym have absolutely no shot against the Fire and Fighting type Infernape, but have a pretty significant advantage over the Grass and Ground type Torterra. Not only does Torterra lose the lead again, but for the first time in ages, Empoleon starts to gain some ground. Still, in spite of everything, Torterra manages to remain somewhat in competition against the fire type. Despite her quad weakness to ice, she can take hits pretty well, and manages to pull through against Candace and arrive at the gauntlet at the end of the Team Galactic plotline only around 20 minutes behind Infernape. Behind the Elite Four, this is easily the point in the race where upsets are most likely, so really, anything could happen here. Or so you would think. Around this point in the game, Infernape learned Calm Mind. I'm just gonna say it straight away, this was the exact point where this competition turned from a three-way race for first into a two-way race for second, and here's why. In the first solo run race, Chimchar was able to breeze through most of the game by just setting up a bunch of nasty plots and then one-shotting the opponent's entire team. However, he struggled in the early portion of the race by being unable to deal with the rock types in the first gym, and then had a major upset at the very end due to it being unable to outspeed, one-shot, or take a hit from Cynthia's Garchomp, forcing him to waste a massive amount of time grinding and soft resetting. In the second solo run race, Monferno was able to get past the first gym a lot easier due to it gaining a fighting type, but struggled a lot more than his pre-evolution for the rest of the game due to him not learning any setup moves. And he still couldn't outspeed, one-shot, or take a hit from Cynthia's Garchomp, once again forcing him to waste a massive amount of time grinding and soft resetting. This thing is basically this evolutionary family's kryptonite. Infernape, however, gets the best of both worlds. He's a fighting type, so he was able to get past the rock type gym quickly. He's now learned a setup move, so he'll be able to take advantage of that for the rest of the game. And he has higher base stats, making that Garchomp far less likely to serve as an impassable roadblock, like it was for his pre-evolutions. So now, it's a bit less of a question of whether Infernape will win this race, and a bit more of a question of exactly how fast he will win it. I guess we'll just have to see. Torterra, meanwhile, has, for the first time in this race, hit a pretty serious roadblock. To the surprise of no one, the teams of the bosses at the end of the Team Galactic Gauntlet, which consist mostly of fast flying types, fast ice types, and steel types with levitate, proves to be a bit of a challenge for the grass and ground type turtle. She does have one saving grace that makes this a bit easier for her than it was for her pre-evolutions. Unlike Turtwig and Grotle, Torterra can learn Rock Slide. This move doesn't make these battles easy, but it makes them somewhat doable. However, by now, Empoleon has caught all the way up, and these battles are especially easy for him. Against the two commanders, all he has to do is spam Surf. It does massive damage to everything on the field, and he gains so much health back with the Shell Bell that it essentially negates any damage he takes himself. As for Cyrus, he pretty much resists all of the moves that all of his Pokémon know. This was one point where his additional Steel type actually came in useful. By the time they've both cleared the gauntlet and caught Dialga, Torterra is almost an hour behind Empoleon, and is starting to run out of opportunities to make that time up. She's able to get some of it back when Empoleon has a bit of an issue with the Electric-type gym in Sunyshore City, but she's gonna need more than that. Especially since, historically, Torterra's evolutionary family has had a lot more trouble with the Elite Four than Empoleon's has. Things are starting to look really grim for the Grass type. Oh, and by the way, in case you thought I was just memeing earlier, when I said how lopsided the race had become now that Infernape had learned Calm Mind, and that I was actually setting up for one of the other two to make an amazing comeback and steal the win, I wasn't. By this time, Infernape has already finished the entire game. Motherfucker first tried the Elite Four, and he did it without even over-leveling. What Infernape did in this portion of the race would have been allowed in a hardcore Nuzlocke. It just goes to show how busted setup moves can be on certain Pokémon. And yeah, he got a bit lucky against the Garchomp since it never used Earthquake, but considering that the AI in Pokémon Diamond is pretty much random, the odds of it playing out like this were actually pretty favorable. Forget achieving the much coveted sub 10 hour game time, Infernape got a sub 8 hour game time. Eventually, Empoleon and Torterra both make it through Victory Road, defeat the rival in the Pokémon League lobby. This was another battle where Earthquake and Rock Slide gave Torterra a much easier time than her pre-evolutions, and start gearing up to take on the Elite Four. I wish I could play up a really intense ending, but looking at the typings of the Elite Four, and then looking at the typings of the two remaining competitors, anybody who's somewhat familiar with Pokémon can see where things are going. Honestly, the deciding factor wasn't even Fire-type user Flint. only 2 of his Pokemon are actually fire types, and his Rapidash is usually pretty easy to set up on, so Torterra had surprisingly few losses against him. The real struggle for her was actually Bug-type user Aaron. His Dustox kept using Toxic, which is essentially an instant loss, and is something that it couldn't do against Empoleon and never had the opportunity to do against Infernape. And even ignoring that, his Heracross could be a challenge for Torterra as well, since she had no good moves to use against it. The rest of the Elite Four went pretty similarly for both of them. Bertha was a total joke, Flint could be annoying but was doable, and Lucian was a bit of a struggle, especially his Alakazam and Bronzong. It really was that massive disparity in how difficult Aaron was for them that sealed the deal. Cynthia herself did prove to be a bit more of a challenge for Empoleon. This was another scenario where Empoleon's new Steel type proved to be a bit of a detriment, but by this point, Torterra was nearly 2 hours behind. Empoleon needing 3 attempts against Cynthia compared to Torterra's 2 attempts simply wasn't enough for Torterra to come back. I wish the ending could have been a bit more exciting and unpredictable, but that's life. Sometimes things just go exactly how you would expect them to. Anyway, let's have a look at the pretty unsurprising results. Torterra had a game time of 11 minutes and 37 seconds, a measured time of 12 hours, 15 minutes and 34 seconds, and only reset twice in the entire game. Once against Candace, saving around 4 minutes, and once against Cynthia, saving around 22 minutes, for a total time of 12 hours, 41 minutes and 19 seconds. Infernape had a game time of 7 minutes and 30 seconds, a measured time of 8 hours, 18 minutes and 58 seconds, and did not reset the game a single time, so his measured time remains as is. Finally, Empoleon had a game time of 10 hours and 12 minutes, a measured time of 11 hours, 15 minutes and 48 seconds, and reset 5 times. 4 times against Maylene, saving around 4 minutes each, and once against Cynthia, saving around 19 minutes, for a total time of 11 hours, 40 minutes, and 29 seconds. So, no change in the ranking whatsoever, but I guess it's nice that Infernape finally comes out on top after not 1, but 2 major upsets at the very end of the game, in the last 2 races. So, I guess that concludes my trilogy of solo run races with the starters in Pokémon Diamond. Does that mean I'm completely done with this series? I don't know. I definitely don't plan on being a total completionist here and do this with every Pokémon in the Sinnoh Pokédex. I am not enough of a masochist to even attempt to do this challenge with a Kricketot. But if I can find any other groups of Pokémon that I think could be interesting for a race like this, who knows? Maybe I'll do the early game wild Pokémon, maybe I'll do the evolutions, maybe I'll do the legendaries, or maybe I'll do something similar in another game altogether. I am starting to feel a little overexposed to Pokémon Diamond. Anyway, that's it. As of now, I'm not actually sure what my next big video is gonna be. I'm taking a bit of a break from my reviewing and ranking series. I'll definitely get back to it eventually, but I'm a bit burned out from the Disney one. Not only because of how many there were, but also because of how mediocre most of them were. I am thinking of starting to make more in-depth reviews of individual movies, so let me know what you think of that idea, or what you'd like to see me cover. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.